Well, many people might find it hard to believe that Canberra actually has an archaeological society, and this is one of their recently restored sites. And I'm going to talk to two of the key people involved with that restoration. Marilyn Folger can lay claim to being part of one of Canberra's oldest settler families, the Crinigans, who lived in this hut near Ginninderra Creek from around 1842. Helen Cook is president of the Canberra Archaeological Society. Hi Marilyn.
Hello Richard.
Hi Helen.
Hello Richard.
How you going? So I've come in the back door, have I?
You've come in the back door. Here's the front door and a big front step. So we know that was... We're not sure about windows, are we? But yeah.
Now Marilyn, you're actually a Crinigan, are you? Is that right?
Yes. I'm the great-great-granddaughter of John and Maria Crinigan. Yeah, and they had 10 children, 10 babies at least, but only one survived. My great-grandmother, Eliza Jane, known as Jane.
Tell us, this was their home, is that right?
Yes. When we first saw it, of course, it was just a pile of rubble. We didn't know how big or that it had 3 rooms or anything like that. It was just a ruin. He was a convict. He didn't get his ticket of leave until a couple of years after, came to live here. He was actually assigned to Palmerville, which is down in Girralang, the Heritage Park down there. But they lived here for the first whatever years. And then when she died in the 1850s, he married somebody else very quickly and went to live on what is now the site of the National Library. He had only the one surviving child. We've got the grand houses, we've got Lanyon, we've got Yarralumla. This represents the small people who all but disappeared. They didn't disappear because we have our oral family history. This site was still, even though it was a ruin, was important. My great-grandmother, the only surviving child of John and Maria, she came back here when she was quite an old lady in the 1920s. The family can remember her coming here. So it meant something to her, a sacred site of some sort. You know, it was part of her, I suppose, part of her life. Because there was actually a floor, and you can see where the floorboards rested, can't you? Here, all the way around.
Quite high, because you see the bearer there, and then your floorboards on top of it. So your floor's probably about here.
That would have been a decent... Do you find that people are ever surprised to know that Canberra has an archaeological society?
Absolutely, and a history, yes. People seem to think, it was the national capital and there was nothing here before it. But yes, they're astonished to hear that there's a prior history of sheep herders and agriculturalists and properties and everything else, and yes, that we have an archaeological society. And they say, but what do you dig? It's not... They think of classical archaeology, and they can't think what might be here. In fact, archaeologists don't always dig. We actually do a lot of field work. So once you've excavated a site, this one is still intact under the floor to some extent, but once you've excavated a site, you've more or less ruined it. And it's a ruin now. But you do destroy it by excavating. So archaeologists do a lot of very thoughtful field recording, analysing the landscape, looking at cause to find out what happened in the climate in the past. We're the earliest proponents of climate change. We know all about that. It's no secret at all and no news to us. So that's what we do, look at what was going on around the people living in the past, because they're part of the environment.
Because this is where we started excavating when we first began, and we didn't know that this fireplace was here. We always knew that one, didn't we, Helen? But this was a surprise, total surprise.
Marilyn worked with Helen and Canberra Archaeological Society to meticulously restore what remains of the hut, which now lies somewhat oddly in the very modern Canberra suburb of Amaroo. But it's well worth visiting and wondering, what would John Crinigan think if he were alive today?
It's no earthly good in conserving a site or analysing it if it's just going to be in a scholarly discourse, in my opinion. I think you have to promote it to the people at large so that they understand their history. It's all part of our history now and our combined history, so they understand it, they appreciate it, and they will help us look after it.
How do we bridge that gap and connect modern Canberra, capital Canberra, to the pre-Canberra history?
Well, sites like this, obviously, where it's definitely here, it's a very physical site, it's not going anywhere in a hurry, so it's quite concrete in a way. People see it and want to know more about it. The walking brochures, the National Trust ones, and also the Archaeology Society is collaborating with the Conservation Council to do similar brochures for Gungahlin, talking about the important sites of natural heritage and Indigenous and historic heritage. So you'll be able to take your brochure and drive or walk around and understand what the history was. Mind you, not everybody will. Not everybody's interested in history, funnily enough. I think somebody said it was once 3% of the population is sort of really interested in history. The others, it's part of their recreation, I think. You know, if they happen to see a site on the way, well, it's interesting. It adds a bit to your barbecue. You can have a look at this and tut-tut for a bit. But that's important. When your kid needs a project for school, you might remember that site and bring them out to have a look at that. That might be your, you know, your grade 5 project, who knows? It's insidious, it gets in there. We're trying to encourage the historians of the future too.
As part of the excavation of Crinigan's hut, many relics were unearthed, which only served to strengthen Marilyn's connection to the site and her family history.
The things that are really pretty to me that I love and we're going to have fun examining, the bits of crockery. As we said, we thought, oh yes, they had a very austere life and things would have been plain and simple, and yet look at the beautiful plate with the patterns. Some of them even had marks on the back, so we'll find out a lot more about that.
Beautiful stuff, isn't it?
It's nice, and that would have been a big platter, big plate, I think. Then the other interesting thing, look at the pipes. You know, they say even the women smoked pipes, so lots of pipe stems we've found, still with the nicotine stains on them. So there have been some treasures, and as I said, we're going to have fun really analysing them to see what they mean and what else they can tell us about life in that time.